Covenant United Methodist Church. My name is Tinker, and I'm glad you could join us today. I'm actually recording this on the 1st of January, so Happy New Year. It's going to be a little bit different today, a little bit shorter. I seem to have some allergies going on, so I'm not sure how long my voice is going to last, which also means I didn't rehearse it as well, so we'll just see how we go. Today will be more conversation than the usual rehearsed sermon, and hopefully we'll still be encouraged by it and receive God's message. Well, you've probably all heard the term, "The King is dead, long live the King," used throughout Hollywood and by actually quite a few nations as part of coronation ceremonies. Of course, here in the States, we don't use that phrase. We actually have an oath of office for the president, which goes, "I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States," so on and so on and so on. We're actually going to hear this in just 20 days from today as a new president is sworn in. Well, today's passage is believed to have actually been part of a coronation ceremony. As is done when we inaugurate a new president, after the oath of office, there's a speech followed by prayers and poems. It is believed that today's psalm was actually read as part of the prayers after a new king was coronated in the ancient Israel kingdom. So let me go ahead and read our psalm. It's Psalm 72, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 7 and 10 through 14. "Give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to a king's son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. May the mountains yield prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness. May he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the needy, and crush the oppressor. May he live while the sun endures, and as long as the moon throughout all generations. May he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his days may righteousness flourish and peace abound until the moon is no more. May the kings of Tarshish and the isles render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him, all nations give him service. For he delivers the needy when they call, the poor and those who have no helper. He has pity on the weak and the needy and saves the lives of the needy. From oppression and violence he redeems their life, and precious is their blood in his sight." So you can easily see how that is a prayer of blessing on a new king. It's not sure actually who wrote this. Scholars are divided. Some believe David wrote it, some believe Solomon wrote it. We do know that at the beginning there is a preposition followed by the word Solomon, but whether that preposition means from Solomon, for Solomon, of Solomon is debated. So we don't know for sure. But a lot of people, a lot of scholars believe this is a Messianic psalm. It is one actually about Christ, the future king. And I do believe there's certainly some of that in there. We see Isaiah turning to this psalm, and we see hints of this psalm actually in the New Testament as well. So certainly, definitely a lot of reason to believe it's Messianic. But I don't believe it's totally that, nor do all scholars believe that as well, because, and the key thing is, it talks about oppressors, and we truly believe that when Christ comes and reigns again, there will be no oppressors, that Christ will indeed set all things right, so there will be no oppressors when Christ reigns. So this psalm was almost certainly meant to be used during the time of the ancient Hebrew kings, the ancient kings of Israel, and possibly also had, especially if it was written by David, had Messianic overtones to it. But what can we get out of it today? Well, let's talk about our situation today, because it is literally, like I said, I'm recording this on the 1st of January. It is literally the beginning of a new year, and one that is very much anticipated because we are tired of 2020. We'd like to see 2020 in the rearview mirror and gone. I'd like to see the end of COVID and For some people, they want to see a change in government. All these things we hope will greet us in 2021. We have a new president from a different political party coming into office. We have a vaccine now for COVID. So we have a lot of hope going into this new year. A hope that 2021 will be so much better than 2020. And so as we look at these new beginnings and we look at this new hope, we can feel some of that same excitement that they felt in ancient Israel when they had a new king come in. It was different. If you didn't like the current king's policies, you were excitingly waiting for the new king's. In some cases, you might have actually liked the old king's policies, but you were ready to see. There was this anticipation. Even if you were concerned, there was this anticipation of the new, what was coming next, what was going to happen now under a new king. And so we have some of that as well, some of that anticipation of what's going to happen now in this new year. So you're probably wondering, how does this psalm apply to us today? And of course, if you believe this is only a Messianic psalm and about Christ, then there is the joy and the hope we have when Christ reigns again. And certainly in this, we just had the season at Advent where we're talking about the anticipation of Christ's birth, and now we are actually in the season of Christ, in the true Christmas season. And so we still have some of that excitement of the coming of Christ at the forefront of our thoughts, and it should bring us hope. It's very much what the season is about, is hope. And so certainly this psalm is also a reminder of why we have that hope, is because Christ will be our defender. Christ will reign with justice and goodness and fairness, and will protect the needy and the helpless and take care of people. So wonderful thing to have hope about, a wonderful thought for this psalm. The other thing, though, that there's several other things, though, I want us to take away from this. The first one, of course, is to pray for our leaders. We may not agree with whatever political party has now taken office. We may not agree, even if it's in the same political party, with all the politics and all of the policies of a particular person. But we can still pray for them. And we don't pray just so that they will succeed, to glorify them. We pray because whatever they do affects our brothers and sisters all over the world. You know, every nation has some impact on the rest of the world and how people live in this world. So we want to pray for those leaders. We want them to be godly people. And so even if they don't go into office as godly people or become kings or queens as godly people, we want to pray that they will be, and that they will have policies that are very much about social justice and taking care of people. But the thing I really want to talk about, because what I see is that it's very easy for us to dismiss the psalm, because we look at it and say, well, okay, it's great, the psalm's for Christ, so, you know, I will give it lip service, pray it, think it, but, you know, I don't have to check anything off on my to-do box. Or we might have on our to-do box the second thought, which is pray for our leaders, and we'll say our prayer, and within, you know, a few phrases we've said it, and we can check it off our to-do list, and we can move on. But there's actually a life application for us here, an everyday application, something that we can do for the rest of our lives. Because it's very true, we don't have kings anymore, and it's very true, only one person in the United States at a time is the president. And it's probably not going to be me or you. Well, it could be you, but I know it's not going to be me, because I have no interest. But all of us, to some extent, exercise power. And that's what the king has, that's what the queen has, that's what the president has, is power. When we come down to it, that's what those people represent, in a way, is power. Power to control politics and economy, etc., etc. We have designated those people to have power over those kinds of things. whether through birth or through election. We all have some power. Almost all of us have some way that we execute some kind of power over other people. Now you may be saying, not me. I'm not on any kind of boards. I don't know president of any kind of thing. I don't do anything like that. I'm not involved with any kind of politics. But the fact is that we all in some way have control over the people around us by what we say, what we do, how we spend our money. We all have some forms of power. And the question is, do we truly ask ourselves when we exercise those forms of power, am I doing this in a godly fashion? I hate to throw out that phrase, what would Jesus do? But what would Jesus do? When Jesus gets ready to spend his money, how would he spend it? When we get ready to spend our money, are we helping those that we know need it? I'm not saying that we should be anti-big corporation at all. That's not the point here. But are we looking at minority businesses and helping them out because they have for so long had to fight a different system, had to fight a different mindset than the rest of us, and different, or we might say, lack of resources? Do we help those that we know are in need when we spend our money? Do we say kind words to those that we know are having a bad day? Or do we turn a blind eye when we know that what we could do could actually help someone else? In some ways, we all have some control over social justice. Do we truly research politicians before we vote for them to know where they stand on different issues that fit in this psalm? How do they take care of the oppressed? How do they help the needy? Do we look at all those things before we cast our vote? Do we look at all those things before we just give our money away to some company or some store? Before we buy a car? There are so many ways that every one of us has some power, and that we too can act in godly ways. And so this psalm is for all of us. This psalm is a reminder that, especially in America, there are many of us. If you are listening to this tape, you probably have access to the internet and some privilege that someone else doesn't have. And so ask yourself, we need to all ask ourselves, are we doing our best to use our power? Are we doing our best to be godly people? A lot of us want to just pray for the president and say, well, okay, I prayed for the president and now I wash my hands of how the rest of the world is being treated because it's not my fault. But the truth is, every one of us has the power to make a difference, to make 2021 a better place for everyone. It's easy to dismiss this and say, well, my hope is in the coming of Christ, or my hope is in a different political party. Instead of saying, you know what, my hope can be in how I act in 2021, how I use the power given to me to make a better place for the rest of the world. So I pray that you will do your best this year to make 2021 a better place for everyone. Amen.
Hey, my name is Justin. I'm here with Olivia and Matt. We're part of the Core Worship Collective, and we're joining you here from our studio in downtown Kansas City. We're bringing you a new song tonight. We wrote this song just last week. It's based on the Wesley Covenant Prayer, and our hope is that wherever you are, no matter what you're going through, this song can also become your prayer in any situation. So it goes like this. We hope you like it. I am not mine, I am yours, God. So put me to your your will alone. Whether used or laid aside, Lord, in joy or suffering, your grace be known. I give myself to you, to your pleasure and your use.
I am not mine, I am yours, God. So put me to your will alone. Whether you are laid aside, Lord, enjoy yourself free, your grace be known. Lifted high or made low for you, emptied out or filled to overflow. Let me have all things, let me have nothing, and put me to your will and yours alone. And I give myself to you, to your pleasure and your use. I give myself to you, to your pleasure and your use.
We sing glories, God, Father, Son, and Spirit. You are mine, and I am yours, so be it. And let these covenants I made, oh yeah, be bound in heaven in your grace. And we all sing glories, God, Father, Son, and Spirit. You are mine, and I'm yours, and I am yours, so be it, yeah. And let these covenants I made be bound, Lord, be bound in heaven in your grace. And we all sing, amen. We sing, amen. It's your voices singing, amen. 'Amen. 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 '